Hi, so now we'll be doing a two-point perspective out of the same model. We finished the first one, the one-point perspective, but the two-point perspective we are going to actually choose the same angle that we did in our isometric, but obviously it's going to be a perspective drawing, a freehand perspective drawing, but I'll trace it with pen to vary as well, and yeah, so the same angle actually, and I'll try to make it from basically ground perspective in order to evolve. So looking basically from here. All right. So again, start with the construction lines if you need in order to guide your drawing. So basically I'm going to look at the ground. So the ground is going to be here. And I'm going to put this kind of element into the perspective, right? So what I want to do is bring this edge to the front. So, and since this area, again, it's the same about framing your drawing. Try to frame it correctly, and I'm going to try to put it more or less around this square. Okay. It might come off, might come in, we'll see. So we look into this angle. So I'll start with this edge. Always start with the edge that's closer to you, if you can, and if you touch the ground, the better. And then, don't go to that angles immediately. It might get difficult elements into it, but so you start this edge, and you start, okay, what kind of perspective? So I'm going to pull it the furthest I can get into my paper. So these are the vanishing points, which are always the vanishing points, which are always on the horizon line, right? So that's how you need to go. Horizon line, vanishing points, and then the first edge. First edge is this. So we know that everything is going to go towards that area, right? So let's go and start putting this down. So we started with this edge, and then there's going to be the whole basically the whole elevation. And one way of doing this perhaps is going to be, this is going to be a kind of an extreme perspective. So I'm going to go like, so it's going to be, because the points are too close, it's going to be very angled, right? So this is going to be the perspective, right? So I'm going to first box it, first box this, and box this area as well. All of this, even if this is round, the same thing. I'm going to box it, right? And I'm going to put a bit of the ground perspective as well. So this edge, actually, this is going to be this edge here. So now I'm going to look at this edge now, here. And for the circular element, I imagine there's going to be a box as well. Then we'll start working with the curve, right? So now we know that this opening is more or less around here. So halfway through here, right? So if this is halfway is around here, we'll start opening it here. And then start getting the perspective, and end up more or less with a similar distance. Obviously this is going to be closer, this is going to be open because it's closer, so it looks wider, obviously. And you know that this part is going to finish around a quarter of your window, so more or less like here. So this is going to be, this is where this is going to end up. So this is the ramp, this is this edge, right? And we'll continue with this edge backwards. At the moment we don't know where it's going to be, but if we look more or less into the perspective, we will start seeing that that this is going to be a little bit before this angle. So is this. So this one is going to be a bit before. So let's bring it to here. And again, this edge, bringing it to the whole point. And again, bring it down, because you know it's more or less the same distance, same width. So it starts to bring down here, right? So this edge also finishes up a little bit earlier. So this is going to be around there. This finishes here. And now we are going to start doing the round area. Again, as always, the round section, this is about the middle. So we can divide. It's always the same, dividing the middle. If you need to get the curve in, what I would recommend is to create maybe a rectilinear element. So if this is the middle element, so here, you'll start creating a square that goes towards there. And now maybe I'll bring the ruler just for you to understand how this can be processed. So this goes there, and this one goes there as well, right? And basically this is the middle point, which is already does a knot there, and this one goes to touch here, right? So you can see that this line touches the ground, so goes there. And what this does is the same, exactly the same thing on the top. You start to do a square box, you box it, you box everything basically. And because this one goes till here, imagine, okay, so I'm going to box until this area, right? So basically what you want to box is this, which is the middle part, and box this area, which is the middle. Okay, so once you have this boxed, basically this square and this square, which should be the same, right? You know that the angle is going to be brought into here. So you basically go and draw there, right? So that's what it was down on the ground, on the rooftop, which we won't see anything because it's behind this line. It's behind this line, and this one the same. So it basically just brings a bit of that, and you start seeing a bit of this line here, and the same thing there. So that's basically what you see on the perspective. And now the door. And again, this goes inside. Inside. So now that you have the construction of the drawing, so basically the layout, you can now start using a softer pen and start bringing up what's in front. So you know that this is the main edge, and then again the ramp, and this line that goes and runs, turns around. Right. And always start giving that expression to those big lines. Alright, so here on the background I tend to not to be so emphatic on the lines, so I like to put the first lines first, the closest to you first, and thicker, and start having these lines a little bit on the background. Right? And last but not least, the window or the opening. Right, and the same thing, because yes, thickness, right? Because we are looking from underneath, this thickness should also be expressed somehow. And again, this one goes towards that direction. Right. So now we have these lines. This is one way of doing it again, but let's express it with a pen. So the first thing is, you don't need to do this, but I just want to show you that focus on the vanishing points. Everything relies on that. And then start building up on those lines. Again, I'll start with the thicker pen for the front lines, which is not really working anymore. Let me see. Maybe this one. Tracing is always easier because you already have the guiding lines. In this case, again, if things don't line up, as it is a freehand drawing, you are as your hand fluctuates, it's welcome to not try to override those things, but make sure they are part of the drawing. Alright, so now we have the opening. Okay, and we'll start. We know that there's a wall here, which we should represent. And now you start, just giving it the shades and the elements that might be part of that kind of element. So in this case, I'll start parallel to this, start giving some shade. The same, going down. Again, you notice that these lines are parallel to that kind of inclination or the perspective. This is one way of doing it, but there's many others. This just accentuates the perspective itself. And then obviously you start increasing the intensity. Again, if you want to bring these lines in, you can have many techniques. You have the dotted ones as well. Again, this is already just trying to bring those elements here, and then when they start going under the line, start covering them under the line. Same thing here. Now here you get the kind of shading, focusing on the same techniques maybe that you did previously, or you can always experience something else as well and start giving more sense to the edges. You don't need to fill in the whole surface if you don't want to, but just giving some sense of definition on the edges and the vertices. And the same thing on the background. Yep, so that's it. Here as well, just in order to express that kind of edgy. But it depends, there's many techniques, and just want you to make it evocative and kind of yep. So yeah, that's it basically. Then you can continue with other techniques, the dotted, the cross, or just the directional one. So this one has these edges. So the directions are here. This is the directional as well, and this is cross referencing. There's also the dotted ones. But yeah, so this is just basically the free perspective, and for the 2-point perspective. So like this, you have the 1-point perspective and the 2-point perspective. All right, thank you.